Hello, this is Mark. I wanted to do a book review and analysis on a very powerful book I recently read called Man's Search for Meaning, which is by Viktor Frankl. This book was written by Viktor Frankl, who was an Austrian psychiatrist who took his experiences in concentration camps during World War II, particularly the Auschwitz and Dachau concentration camps, and developed a psychotherapy school, which literally became like the third Viennese psychotherapy school after Sigmund Freud, who had the principle of pleasure, and then Alfred Adler, who had the principle of power. Viktor Frankl was able to develop his own psychotherapy philosophy called logotherapy, which, unlike Freud and Adler for pleasure and power, he said that humans with logotherapy are driven primarily by a search for meaning. Now, it's interesting about this book is that he developed this, like I said, not just from, classroom and study and, maybe even after, working with patients, but he developed this while experiencing and actually seeing human interaction while surviving in these concentration camps. So the book itself, it is a very short book. I mean, you can almost really read it in one sitting. The main first part is maybe an hour or two long, and then there's the more recent editions include more of an expansion on what logotherapy is based on speeches that Viktor Frankl had given, and just more of his explanation of what it is in a real world context. In the initial, even just the initial book, he does do a transition from his experiences in the concentration camp to more of, he does it in such a way that you don't even realize it at first, but it kind of a treatise of like what logotherapy is through his experiences and what he went through and what he observed. So just kind of break that down. Really the part one is just the camp experience. He talks about there's different phases that he saw that himself and other humans would literally go through as they experienced the horrors of the concentration camp and everything that was bad that was there. And these three stages are identified by a shock phase. Really, that everything just feels surreal, emotional overload, and just the brain would go into kind of a numbness as a defense, kind of a trauma protection. Going further in what he described as an apathy phase, where emotional response decreased, that he would actually see just brutal, terrible things happen and occur, but he felt almost like no emotion as a result of it. Survival became the priority, and just the response to all the terribleness and the murder and everything that was happening around him, it just kind of became a numbness. But then the third phase that he realized is that he saw that himself and different people within the camps, they would go to what could potentially be a meaning preservation phase, which is the most important, that they would not lose their humanity effectively. They would actually reach a point where they would suddenly be able to find meaning. And he said this could come in the thinking about their family or loved ones, but thinking about future responsibilities they would have outside of the camp, preserving their moral identity, basically choosing to be and act a certain way despite all of the circumstance. So in that, he makes that transition and then goes more into, if you get the newer versions of the book, about logotherapy, more explained, and how that is more explored, especially in modern day life, not just what you observed in the camps. And he talked about meaning can be found in three primary ways. There is not a one size fits all definition for like the meaning of life. It's usually something that's discovered through various experiences and various I don't know, just enlightenments, I guess you could call them, over the course of a life. And he said the first one is love, that you can have relational depth, love another person. You can find meaning in that. He talked about a creative meaning, one that he actually really used in the camp, is that he wanted to actually do a study, a psychology study on people within these camps, and he wanted to actually share those findings, and that became one of his drives and meanings to get through and survive the camp. So it could be a work, in science and art, a service, basically you're finding that you have something to contribute, right, to the overall society, or, something to contribute to others. And then the last one, he says, and this is one of the most important ones, is attitudinal meaning, which means that no matter what's happening to you, especially in the concentration camps, that everyone still has the primary freedom on how they will respond. He called it a tragic optimism, that under any hardship, that your response is still chosen, whether that's to completely lose hope, treat others demeaningly, or will you actually choose to retain hope and treat others, kindly. He talked about many of the people within the camp that would still treat others with kindness and help them, and what a stark contrast that was, with what he saw as a vast majority in the camps. But he says, these are the three primary ways that no matter what you're experiencing in life, that you can certainly find meaning. Even if you have the absence of everything else, it's just, I choose to be this way through suffering or through tragic events or something like that, that I have a choice to, bring goodness to the world versus, all the badness around, right? He talks about the modern relevance of this, that the clear signs that you're lacking meaning is boredom, no motivation, anxiety without cause. He kind of goes into symptoms he sees with his own patients that, may be lacking that meaning in their own life. They have yet to discover or realize what that meaning is. Some of the most popular quotes I really wanted to point out is he quotes Friedrich Nietzsche. Did I say that right? It says, he who has a why to live can bear with almost any how. And I thought that was a very powerful quote. Actually something I've written down and I almost want to read daily. It's just, literally the why can have us overcome any how or any circumstance if we have that why, right? He said between stimulus and response, there's a space. We are not robots. We're not, automated, where whatever happens to us will dictate the response we give. There is always a choice, though we might be driven in certain directions based on things. There is always a choice on our response. And the last major quote was, so the last of human freedoms is the will to choose one's attitude, which basically is saying, no matter what, even in a concentration camp, that is one thing that can never be taken away, is how you will respond to the things going on around you and still have decency and humanity, right? I really, really recommend this book. I mean, it's not just another self-help book. Nothing against self-help books. You can read a ton of self-help books and, the person may be very reliable and have the experience to be able to claim what they're claiming. But this one just really seemed to have weight to it with what he experienced and what his philosophy was born out of, like literally experiencing the worst of humanity and the depths of, despair that someone can go through. And then coming out of it with, the search for meaning is the primary drive of everyone. Underneath it all, it's not power, it's not pleasure. It's like, what actually has meaning in my life? What am I, what do I wake up every morning like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I am contributing, whether it's, taking care of someone or producing something or, just being a better person, responding in a certain way. It's all a journey of discovery, for that day-to-day meaning. So yeah, who should, one last thing is, like, anyone who wants to read this book, I would recommend everyone read this book at least once in their life. I've actually read it, off and on. My last reading, I think it was probably the third time I have read it all the way through. But if you want to understand trauma psychology, if you're in that line of work, even with your own personal psychology, if you've experienced trauma, just from someone who clearly went through quite a bit of trauma, his entire family was killed, including his wife, and what he experienced personally and how he was able to cope and deal with it and respond to it, I think this would be an amazing book that no matter what's happened to you, you still have choice and an avenue to change and willfully be a certain way in meaning, right? If you're into existential philosophy, what is the meaning of it all in life and everything, a very good book to read. If you want to know about human survival, things that humans can go through yet endure, and any purpose-driven, ideology or resilience, this is an excellent book to read. So I highly recommend it. And if anyone has read it, please comment. Let me know what you think. And I would love to have further discussion on maybe what it meant to you or what you took away from this book. But I hope you have a good day, and hope you find meaning. All right, bye-bye.